That right there would just destroy your shoulders because it's a lot of impact. You actually can hear my shoulder crack, I think, and that taking a lot of impact to those joints.
So the idea of that execution is cool, but without the saya, he's essentially like punching him in the gut.
If you were to try to cut off a head, that's what you would do. So you see how he's using his whole body weight generating force behind the sword. That's ideally how you want to generate force in your cut, having your whole body adding weight behind it without muscling it.
My name is Brendon Huor. I'm a stunt performer and motion capture performer for movies, TV, and video games. And I once sliced a man in half with my hat in a motion capture stage.
My name's Lawrence Mok. I'm a martial artist, and I've been practicing Japanese martial arts for the past 13 years.
So today we're gonna be reviewing For Honor Part 2, and I play so much of this game at home and waste so much time on it. I really like it, so I'm looking forward to this. Orochi. I play this character. So right away you can see that they try to put him in like a lighter type of samurai armor than the other really typical samurai characters, the Kensei.
One-hand reverse grip's a little uncommon. Obviously it's a video game and we don't want it to end quickly. If you watch carefully in a second, he does a horizontal swing and he goes right across the guy's head. That's essentially instant death right there normally. You're kind of cutting the guy's head off, especially if that sword is sharp, which it's supposed to be.
I think realistically here, I think in terms of realism, that's probably the coolest move that Orochi has, where he steps back. Usually you use it when your opponent's like swinging at you and you step right out of the way and come right back in with a strike. I think that one is probably realistically the best looking move Orochi has.
What he does is to create that opening, he actually hits upwards to knock the sword to create an opening. So he's breaking the opponent's grip.
I don't know in this case if that's the best idea to go up against
of course not.
two-handed claymore downward swing.
Of course not. I'm just saying I like the fact that he does an opening and not just swings at the head. Wouldn't really want to approach a claymore that way.
With that reverse grip, like it gives you a couple of different options in terms of like getting into close range and being able to slash as you pass through, but in terms of power, like that being one of Orochi's like heavily highest damage output moves that he has, it doesn't really make sense. It's a one-handed swing. You're holding super high up towards the blade. You don't get that much leverage on the swing.
Right.
Orochi is not wearing a saya. He just holds his blade.
Yeah, the saya kind of doesn't exist, which is kind of a weird oversight when you think about what the core focus is with this game, right?
So yeah, when Orochi is doing all these spin moves, I think the idea is to try to make him seem like a really light and agile character, but that's a really bad idea to turn your back on an opponent. It'd be much more economic for him to just slice as he goes through.
Well, and especially if you're watching the way the Vikings swing from where he's coming to, he's actually spinning towards the sword side. So you see how he's always right-hand dominant, but he's spinning towards his opponent's right.
Yeah, again, spinning strike is not the best idea.
Yeah.
There's another example of the Orochi just taking a huge double hand blow just straight on with his blade.
That right there would just destroy your shoulders because it's a lot of impact. You actually can hear my shoulder crack, I think, and that taking a lot of impact to those joints. It's not something that's advised. You want to try to sidestep and dodge as much as possible. If you're going to block, you don't want to block head on. You want to block at an angle so you can slide off without absorbing the full force of the attack. One thing that's about this that's not realistic, obviously, is when you're in a big fight like this, you're still fighting people one at a time and the other ones kind of wait a little bit before they whack you. Actually, I think he just got hit by his teammate right there.
And Orochi's zone attack when he just does that spinning single slice and takes out like 4 soldiers with shields.
Yeah.
That's completely not realistic.
Right. I mean, that one was kind of cool. It didn't work in Orochi's favor, but bounced off the shield because it wasn't effective and he got counterattacked because of it. Because that's the thing I'm kind of noticing with Orochi. He's swinging very heavily, but if he misses, he's completely open to get counterattacked almost right away. So yeah, that's like all shield striking there. Nobody there would have died. Some people would have some very sore arms, but nobody would really die there because you're magically cutting through that giant wooden shield, right?
So one thing with the way the Shinobi does this, the backflip kick, he does it with his arms out to the side,
Yeah.
which like looks cool, but it doesn't help you in any way do a backflip. First one I kind of like, you know, where he just takes his head off. First thing I would say is that would take an incredible amount of force to be able to just,
Well, especially because he has no momentum
no
behind it.
momentum, just like slice through that
Or you
guy's
have to have
head.
a super sharp sword. But the idea there is, in terms of the cut itself, there are some techniques where you use the full length of the blade to do a cut. Because a lot of people tend to focus on like the upper half where you're generating force and momentum. That's where a lot of the striking is. But there are sometimes if you're in close quarters or if you have to cut through a lot of, in this case, meat and bone, you would use more of the blade to generate more force.
Yeah, but I think realistically in real life, he would just cut the guy's throat.
It wouldn't be a decapitation. That one would require a lot of control, which we're assuming these characters have, obviously, but it's a stylish execution is the best way to put it.
The default character is always the warden, who's got this fully chainmailed, chainmailed like
you ain't going
neck
through
piece.
that.
Yeah, and they're always cutting right through the chainmail like it's
Butter. That would be more accurate, going for a stab through a soft area like the throat. And there are techniques we do where we go for the throat or the armpit, but the problem with that is it's a very small target, right? Obviously, if you hit anywhere in the neck and you open up to bleed, they're gonna bleed and they're probably going to die. Especially back in the older ages, you know? It's a very small target to try to hit. So if they're moving, it's hard. There's other targets you could hit.
Yeah, if you really are nitpicking on the animation, he's only got like a one-handed grip on that sword. The positioning is good because it's a well-braced position to kind of lean your whole body weight into that stab, but his left hand is not holding onto the handle, so he's essentially kind of like one-handed stabbing the guy in the throat.
When we do this technique, the horizontal cut, we don't do it from a reverse grip here because for me, this makes no sense. So for me, the problem here is I can't generate a lot of force. I'd have to have one hand palm down or palm up so that I can cut properly.
Yeah, otherwise the hand that's doing the primary pushing, you're kind of just pushing with your thumb.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters in For Honor are pretty heavily armored.
Yeah.
So for him to just go straight through both the back plate and the body and then the front plate is...
It's bravado. I mean, if you look at where he's hitting him in the small and the back, where if we're talking about samurai armor, that would be the opening between the upper half and the lower half, right?
Right.
So that would be where you'd want to stab somebody, don't get me wrong, but the fact he's doing it without looking, not realistic. It's such a small window on where you can hit, maybe an inch or two tops if they're really big. To try to do that blind, it wouldn't be realistic in my opinion. In terms of where you'd want to hit, that's where you'd want to hit.
So he sheaths it directly into his own hand, which doesn't make much sense.
Because they don't have the saya, right?
Also the head coming off there.
No, that's a throat slick. There's no way he's cutting through the whole head.
Yeah, and he's at such a distance where he's just nicking with the tip of his blade.
Yeah, like I said, that has to be like the sharpest sword known to man.
He's nicking with the tip of his blade, and then the whole head comes off.
Magic.
I don't like that one.
I don't like that one at all. Maybe the throat cut if they didn't have chainmail on, like if it was another samurai, the throat cut, okay, but you're not gonna throat cut, sweep, and then launch him, you know?
Even the back sweep, like that's,
in
that kind of armor, that's gonna be so hard to do.
And it's very weak too, you can't generate a lot of force behind it.
Yeah, and then he lops the guy in half. Or no, he doesn't lop him in half,
he just launches
the guy.
It's like a triple rotation HK.
Yeah, you're never gonna get that kind of a force out of a one-handed swing.
He is wearing lighter armor, so he has more flexibility there, because you see it's not heavily armored there. There's no reason to kick somebody when you have the sword there. Once the sword's in, you'd pull out and then you do whatever you're doing. The kick isn't necessary even to create space.
They're trying to show that he's like pulling the sword out, but for him to go to a one-handed reverse hand slash, have that be the thing that kills him.
The thing about Kenjutsu is that there are so many different styles that do techniques in so many different ways. I don't see the benefit of doing both reverse grip and one-handed.
You're cutting off a lot of your options by going reverse grips.
You can only really do that.
The one benefit I can see is that you're able to go into more of a close range. For him to kick him away to go into a close range grip doesn't really make a lot of sense.
So the idea here is you're in a fight, right? You wouldn't just pose here. Your opponent might not be dead. Even if they're hurt, they might come back and try to take you with them, or they might try to hurt you. So you wouldn't just pose here and leave your back exposed to an opponent, no matter how hurt they are. What the hell is that? Is it like pure style?
I hate that execution.
And I don't really have much to say about this. It's obviously a very hyper-stylized version to look cool.
On all his forehand cuts, especially the ones that are going upwards, like he's really breaking the wrist.
Yeah.
Generally, like when you're doing sword stuff, like you don't want to go to a full extension because at that point, like it's really easy to disarm and also like lose control of your sword. You have a lot more leverage on the sword when it's at a 90 with your hand. He's really going all the way through and like fully extending that.
This upper ridge of the hand here, the more you bend it, the more you're compromising your strength here. So the idea here is if I cut like the way he's doing one-handed and I miss and they counterattack, that sword's gone.
And aesthetically, the poses, each little end frame of those slashes from a cinematic and motion capture standpoint, they're not really the best.
If you were to try to cut off a head, that's what you would do. So you see how he's using his whole body weight generating force behind the sword. That's ideally how you want to generate force in your cut, having your whole body adding weight behind it without muscling it. Especially when you're wearing armor, you wouldn't really want to try to leave the ground. You don't know how you're gonna land.
He's doing a yokogeri, he's doing a jumping sidekick.
Sidekick.
So the idea of that execution is cool, but without the saya, he's essentially like punching him in the gut. The warden is just turning by himself. He's not doing anything to turn him.
Unless they got a beard like this, you're not gonna grab the jaw and twist him like that. I don't know where that came from, but cool.
And he's a samurai, he wouldn't have a kunai. That's much more a shinobi thing. I guess the idea when he does that jump spin push kick is he's trying to, you know, close that distance between him and the opponent.
Wouldn't do that one-handed personally.
Not my favorite pose at the end either.
But one thing I do like is right before he does the thrust, he does get that hand out of the way, so he doesn't risk hitting his hand either when he's doing the thrust. At least he's being safe with himself. One thing I like is if that was samurai cutting to the inside of the leg, they wouldn't have as much armor on the inside as they would on the outside, because they have to be able to ride on a horse, right? So if you have armor on the inside, that's just gonna hurt and chafe. Part I hate, he literally has the blade against his arm and he's trying to use it to generate pressure. He's going to cut cut everything open in there, especially because there is no armor back there.
And the way he's doing that choke,
Wouldn't really choke him either. Normally, if you're gonna do a choke from there, you wanna kind of cut off oxygen and blood flow with the artery here. But if you look at where the hand is, it's more on the jaw. It hurts, but it's not going to choke them out. Granted, he's not trying to choke him out, he's trying to break his neck. I would want to try to get that knuckle or even hand guard into that artery to choke him out a little bit more.
I think on a realism standpoint, For Honor is not really the best benchmark of a game. I think the point of the executions is really to just humiliate the person you're playing against. And on that note, they do a good job.
To be honest, if I was watching it like an action flick, it looks cool, realism aside.
But almost every character, when you're playing it and you get to like do that execution against your opponent, it feels so good.
We had a lot of fun watching these clips from For Honor Part 2. If you want to see more videos like this, please go to Gamology's YouTube channel or to their Facebook page for more videos.
So today we're going to be doing For Honor Part 2, and I personally play this game a lot at home and waste so much time on it. So let's go ahead and watch some more.
You gave up so.
I did.
You gave up so.
One more try.